Welcome back to the show we call The Business Life. 15 years doing this here at KHTS. Not at KHTS, but other radio stations, a couple hundred stations around the country. You can hear our station on hometownstation.com and download the app. It's a great app, and you get texts, all kinds of stuff. KHTS is one of the great radio stations in America. Trust me, they do so much for this community. But the app, just go in the App Store, KHTS, and it'll pop up. I just want to say one thing before I introduce our second segment with my wonderful co-host, and you're going to be back many times, Detective Sergeant Don Tabak. We're going to talk about the LAPD and his life. But I just got to say something. If you're listening from the city of Thousand Oaks, I'm in Santa Clarita, not Thousand Oaks anymore. Wow. This town's Santa Clarita's full of potholes. The streets are going bad on us, Don.
Oh, I see them.
Come on, city of Santa Clarita. Come on. Do I have to go down there and knock on the door? Coaches here. Come on, fill these potholes, man. It's ridiculous. All right, so I'm going to be talking about potholes next week, Justin, just in case somebody cares. Besides,
sounds like riveting radio.
No, I mean,
moving the needle with that one.
I'm going to try, man. Don't you? But you can get in some serious accidents by avoiding these potholes. Anyway, I'll be down at City Hall. I promise. All right. So Don Tabak, Detective Sergeant, LAPD's. How many years?
25.
Wow, 25 years of putting your life on the line. So thank you for doing that.
Well, that's nice of you. Thank you.
It's true, and I feel in my heart that the badge, the uniform. You guys do an incredible job. Most police departments, yes, there's always that one bad example, but every industry has it. I don't care. Pick one. But let's start with your life. So you go through the academy, which is 6 months. You come out at 20 and a half years old?
I had just turned 21. You had to turn 21 by the time you got to the academy.
And now you're in a car. Where's your first territory? What's your first precinct?
My very first place I went was in Foothill Division out here in the Lakeview Terrace, Sylmar area.
Okay.
Which lasted about 3 weeks, and I go to work, and I'm told that I have to go on loan to 77th Division in South Central Los Angeles. Not a problem. I literally, my life was the 405 freeway and the 101.
Right.
I had to call the watch commander and get directions to where their station was on Broadway and 77th. That's how ignorant I was of this city. Next thing I know is I'm in South Central LA, and I am telling people who have been married longer than I've been alive what to do, in essence.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because all kinds of family disputes is a big part of your job. So you've seen things that 99% of us have never seen. I don't even get to some of the horrible things that you've seen. I want to talk about the life of a police officer. So now you get transferred, and are you what, day watch, night watch?
No, I was assigned to work morning watch, which in those days was midnight to 7:45, basically.
Ooh, so you're working the worst time. I've always said this to my teenage kids: nothing happens good after midnight. Do you believe that?
It goes back into the 70s. Yeah, for the most part, that's true. And the thing about working that, which I've never stayed up all night working, was you end up eating breakfast 3 times a day, because you go to bed, you wake up, it's in the middle of the afternoon, you eat breakfast at work, and eat breakfast when you get off work. So that's the horrid thing about it.
That worked for me, because that's my favorite meal.
Oh, boy.
So you're in one of the worst divisions in the United States, period.
Absolutely.
And you're driving around in a car all day. At midnight till 7 in the morning. So the calls can't be fun. I mean, you're getting, what kind of calls are you getting?
My very first call, Ron, in South Central was a 415 woman with shots fired, which was 415 is a penal code for a disturbance.
Are these the same today? Of
yeah,
415?
absolutely,
okay.
yes.
All right,
so we respond, and it's in the middle of Watts. And we walk up, and there's a woman on their front porch of a Craftsman-style home, back down there, that's what's down there, and there is a dead body laying on the stairs. Now, I had never seen, literally, a dead body, and this guy's missing half of his skull, and she is ranting and raving that this so-and-so and that MF will never cheat on me again. This lady blew up her husband. And she came peacefully, and the shotgun was sitting on the porch, and it amazed me It amazed me that this thing
I just can't imagine. You're 21 years old, and this is your first call.
no service. I was, the Vietnam War had just ended, and a lot of Vietnam vet. My training officer, I'm just aghast. Like, that's the solution, was just kill him. So that started a lifelong.
But this
journey.
happens. I mean, yeah,
absolutely. That is life.
Let me just. I got so many questions. Were you wearing protective gear back then?
There was no protective gear back then.
Oh my goodness!
I had a hat. I had to wear a hat in those days, so there was no vest.
Isn't that amazing?
And we had a revolver that shot 6 bullets.
A 38?
A 38.
38. Still a good gun.
Well, 6 versus, they have 90 rounds now in these automatic weapons, so you're kind of outgunned. But back then, it was a representable weapon.
We'll get to this current situation in a minute. All right, so that's your very first call, 4:15. Wow. And you put her in the back of your car?
Hooked her up. We called for the detective.
When you say hook them up, the handcuffs.
Handcuffs came out.
Okay.
We taped off the crime scene because it was a homicide scene.
Right.
We made our notifications to 77th Homicide to roll out there and secured witnesses, and that gave me my first idea that, this is pretty cool.
Well, what witnesses are there at 4 a.m?
Well, you have to canvass the area.
Really? You're knocking on doors at 4?
Absolutely. Oh, and they're real happy about that. Real happy.
You're knocking on doors. Oh, my God.
And you're expecting, the gunshot to come through the door because, and even back then, before the proliferation of gangs and drugs, you know who's knocking on your door at 4 a.m. So, you would do that, secure the scene, wait for homicide to arrive. Somebody would transport the suspect, to the station. You would write what you saw, what you observed, and, the clock starts.
Was your partner a Caucasian officer, too?
No, I had a lot of black officers down there. Not a lot. But
the LAPD's done a better job of diversification.
Absolutely.
Okay, so back to this crime. So you're knocking on doors, trying to get witnesses. Who takes her away?
I believe we took another unit would come there and transport her back to 77th.
Okay, and then who does the paperwork?
Well, we do just our observations, and the detectives, the homicide detectives, will usually do all the paperwork. It's their scene.
They have to come out?
Absolutely. Rolled them out in the middle of the night, which we thought was great, because here we're working and they're sleeping.
Because this is what you used to do it when we get to the point where you became detective. This is what you would do.
Absolutely. But I learned, and I would bring donuts, or in those days, that's what we ate, to the scene. Because
that's shocking that cops would eat donuts.
I know. It stuns probably most of your audience, but that did happen. But we would bring them so that the cops would at least get something for standing there for a couple hours before we arrived.
Oh, my God. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, so that was your first case. So let's 5 years later, what happens?
5 years later.
How do you get promoted, incidentally? How do you...
It's the beautiful thing about civil service is with the amount of time on that you have, there's a written test to go up, like for a training officer. There's a written test that you take, and then you do an interview, an oral, before an oral board. And then they rank you 1 through whatever, and then when your number gets called, you get promoted. Sergeant, you have to have like 4.5 years in the job. There's a written test, and then there's a board that you go through. Again, the oral board. So between the written score and the oral score,
you actually go to a board where you're in front of people.
Absolutely, in front of 3
other officers.
Captains and a citizen as you got up to the sergeant level, and you're ranked on a list.
What was your paycheck back then when you first started? 21 years old.
Okay, so I opened up Magic Mountain. That's how old I am. I worked there the first year I was there and making $2.10 an hour. We had a flag football team that we played, a Metro team from LAPD Metro.
Time out, you were making $2 an hour.
$2.10. And every month I got one ticket to get free admission to the park. So this was good.
This was off duty, though.
I was on the job at the time. I was still going to Pierce, and I was working at...
I'm talking about your first paycheck as an LAPD.
So I went from $2.10 an hour, which whatever that is a month,
right,
to $963 a month. My take-home pay was $263 and change every 2 weeks, and I thought I was a bazillionaire. A zillionaire.
Yeah, but as we said before we started the show, you didn't put in 8-hour days. I'm sure, people don't realize that the commitment that you make to the community and the hours that you steal away from your family is just bizarre.
It takes its toll.
The divorce rate has to be just ridiculous.
And the suicide rate. I have 6 friends of mine that killed themselves that are buried right here in Eternal Valley.
Oh, my God.
That's like the open door to law enforcement, is to be buried in Eternal Valley. Training, and that's what the whole crux was, is how you were trained is how you became. And I wanted to emulate these guys over these hard charges, but had so much common sense. And the biggest thing to me, Ron, was when you either couldn't arrest a guy that day, or the DA didn't file on him. Instead of getting all wrapped up in that, it's like, who cares? You'll get him tomorrow. It's not, you did your job. If the DA chooses not to file, so be it. You move on to the next one. It's when you start going, why aren't they filing that thing? And we let a turd out in the street. That's when you start losing it. And that's when bad things happen as being a cop.
When you make it so personal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's an interesting comment. And we'll talk about common sense in a minute. Let me go back to, I'm curious about, there were gangs then, of course, right? Did you have the Crips and the Bloods?
Absolutely. The gangs didn't proliferate until the middle to 78, 79. There had always been the true Hispanic gangs, White Fence, Frogtown in the East LA, Los Angeles area. But the black gangs really didn't start happening until the late and middle 70s. And Tukey Williams was one of the first guys I ever arrested for a traffic warrant. And Tukey, was the founder of the Crips.
So, okay, so you gave him a ticket for what? What's wrong with his car?
I didn't. We stopped him, and I don't recall why. And
okay,
we're talking to him, and
did he have a gun on him?
No. But he had a warrant for a traffic ticket that he didn't take care of.
Got it.
And then as the years went on, he became very instrumental in the gang life in Los Angeles, and he was basically the founder and the builder of gang life.
Back in those days, you were writing a black and white.
Correct.
Was part of your job giving traffic tickets?
I have sergeants that probably wish that I would have thought that was my job, but I didn't write very many traffic tickets.
Okay, what about today? When I see a black and white, first of all, I get black and white fever. I have to tell you, it's terrible.
Everybody does.
Everybody does?
Of course.
It's terrible. Do you don't?
No, but I've got a.
Have you been pulled over for
numbers
anything?
of times, and I'm just praying that they remember the brethren, and here's my badge.
Do they let you go?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So back to your life. We're talking to Detective Sergeant Don Tabak. We grew up together, and we've known people, but this is the first time we've ever done an interview. So you'll be back many times. You got a great radio voice.
To.
So you get out of the academy, 6 months in the academy, you're working the black and white, you have a training officer. At what point do you start to grow? How do you go from being a traffic, or not just writing a black and white, to becoming a detective? Give me that litany. How did that go?
You start formulating what you want to do within that department. You want to be a motor cop and write tickets. Do you want to be one of the guys that flies the helicopters? There's a multitude of jobs within LAPD, and I was always fascinated with homicide. Just the mere fact that there's a dead body laying there, not like the first call I had, but a whodunit. And you're putting together all the clues, and you're working from the body out. And you find out the most fascinating things about this individual that nobody, including the guy's wife or her husband or any friends of theirs, knew about this person. So I knew I wanted to be that. So I had to wait. I think I could take the test with 5 years of experience, and I took a test, and then I took this interview, and I didn't make it quite high enough on the test. And in the interim, I got to be what they used to have as a detective trainee. Had enough time.
How old are you now?
I'm 23.
Wow.
Yeah, I got on.
Wow.
I'm 64, and. Anyway, I was able to, you become a detective trainee, and you get to work as a working detective in a policeman rank. And
at 23?
No. I was 9 years. So I was 30 when I came inside, as they call it.
Wow.
And then
that's still a young person. Still,
well, I
think
had
of a
9
30-year-old today. Okay,
yeah,
but
I had 9 years in the street, and I was ready. And became a detective trainee, and was taught the same things that you're supposed to learn as a hardworking detective, and I was finally made it in a promotable band, as they call it, and I was made it. They call it rank of a detective 1, a beginning detective.
What about homicide that you could share with thousands of people that are listening to Voice here on KHTS in Southern California, 1220 AM? Don't forget to download the app on the App Store. You can listen to the coach and the sergeant detective. So, detective sergeant, excuse me. So, what can you share with the public about homicide? Are most homicides a crime of passion premeditation.
There's a goodly portion, obviously, of crime of passion murders. But for the most part, and I'd say probably in my era, 70% of my murders were as a direct result of narcotics or a direct result of gang activity through narcotics.
What percent?
Probably 70%.
Wow.
It was rare. In fact, it was so nice to be able to get somebody who was killed over a robbery or a break-in or what they call carjackings. It wasn't called that back then, but it was a breath of air to get something other than a gang killing or a shooting over narcotics.
And did you spend most of your professional life, your 25 years, in the 77, in the worst?
No. I did 13 years in Hollywood Division, which was the greatest 13 years of my life. And then I was promoted to a detective sergeant level, and I worked downtown in a place called Criminal Conspiracy, and went back, and I ended up working a multi-12 murder case with another detective friend of mine out of the district attorney's office.
Now, back in those days, they didn't have DNA, right? You had no DNA.
No, that was just coming to the forefront towards the end of my career.
Right. So if you had a homicide, as you said, you were working the body out, what was your day like? I mean, you had a desk. Now you're 30 years old. You have a desk. What are you doing all day?
Mainly it's running, interviewing witnesses, trying to figure out what happened and why that person was killed.
When you physically go out, or you do it over the phone?
No. You don't do anything over the phone.
So you physically go out.
Everything is on feet.
On a black and white or an undercover car?
Just a detective car, a plain car.
Okay.
And once you find out who that person is, that's critical.
But wait a second, detective car. We don't know what a detective car is. Do you have a two-way radio in there?
We have a two-way radio, but there's no lights and sirens.
No lights?
No lights. So we're just like you.
Can't light anybody up?
Can't light them up, although if we need it, we would just call black and white and stop this guy.
Got it. Okay.
So again, we have our own agenda. It's really not about traffic. If there was something going on that we would see, we would pick up the microphone and have our dispatcher send a black and white that there's an argument on the street. But we didn't have time for that.
So you have the art of negotiation and interrogation, so I wouldn't want you to interrogate me at all about anything.
You're
an expert, I can tell.
It boded well in raising my sons, too, because they would just go, well, you forced it out of me. They were the easiest marks, believe me.
So, Miranda, when you're interviewing a witness, do you have to Mirandaize them?
No, and you know what? That is such a... That in itself, you've got to be on top of case law. And Miranda's great if you're going to ask accusatory questions. But if I stop you in the street and I tell you, Coach, you're free to go whenever you want, just walk away from me. But you know anything about that shooting last night? Well, you can sit there and tell me everything, and I'm going to lead you down that path. And if it ends up being that you were my guy, Miranda don't count because you weren't in custody. And that's how you have to be. You have to know what you're doing.
So the Miranda is only for those people,
custody.
as you say, as you hook them up. So
in custody.
So if you're handcuffed, you're in custody.
Nope, that's a detention. So again, all the attorneys out there are going to go, hey, wait, that's wrong. It's not. In our world, if you're in custody, which is technically, once you're handcuffed and in my car, you're not free to go. Right? But anything before that, like I told you, Coach, leave. I've had suspects sitting, and I know that they're my suspect. I know that they're guilty, sitting in my interview room, looking at them and going, you can leave here, right? Yeah, I know I can leave. Anytime you want.
And they don't leave.
They don't leave. And people who are guilty want to talk to you. They always want to talk.
You're listening to Detective Sergeant Don Tabak, LAPD, 25 years. So fascinating on KHTS 1220 AM. We're learning about his life. How do I ask this question? TV, all the NCIS shows, how close to these shows are we? Do you watch these shows?
No.
Great. I was going to ask the question, how close are these police shows to reality? And you can't answer them because you don't listen to the show. So
I mean, I've watched them every now and then, but in an hour, they solve more than I've ever solved.
You want to put a caller on? We'll take a caller. Go ahead, caller. What's your name? Caller? Hello, caller. Wait. Hello, caller. Caller?
Hey, how you doing, Coach?
Oh, we know this voice. This is my biggest fan. This is Philly.
Great, two of my favorite people. Great topic, great interview.
What do you want to ask this? Can you recognize the voice?
I know that voice from anywhere.
All right, what do you want to ask the detective sergeant? What are you curious about?
Thanks for your service. And what's it like to live in this beautiful metropolis of Santa Clarita and see it the way it is today compared
Before he answers, Phil, let me ask you a question. Am I the only one concerned about all the potholes in the street? I mean, this what's going on with the potholes in Santa Clarita, man?
Okay, there you go.
All right.
So how does it feel since $2 an hour at Magic Mountain to today? Well, you think of the...
You know, like I said, I thought I was making $1 million a year when I got $260 every 2 weeks. That was like a ton of money. And they sent me a credit card. So now I thought, this is amazing. I can charge things and not have to pay it back, but just a few cents or a few dollars a month.
Here's a question, Philly, I'll ask. Give me three, if I ask you, what are the three things that come to mind serving 25 years as LAPD? I'd love to get three things that come to your mind, but we got to take a quick break. Philly, hang in there with us. Three things that come to mind after 25 years as the detective sergeant, and we still haven't. We just haven't even peeled the onion. You're going to have to come back to peel more of this onion.
We
come right back. KHTS 1220 AM right here in Southern California. HometownStation.com. If you want to listen when you get home, we'll be right back, and Detective Sergeant will give us three things about his life on the LAPD. Be right back. Thank you, Philly, for calling. Thanks for listening in. It's the show we call The Business of Life, and I try to have great guests on. I have one today that I'll have back. First of all, he's got a great radio voice, and to all the police officers out there, I love you, man. Men and women, you put your life on the line, the hours that you put in. I would love to see the public just have a whole different respect and admiration like I do, because there's bad apples and everything, but I guarantee you 98% of you guys are just damn good human beings, so I want to say that to you. So three things: LAPD, 25 years, detective sergeant, that's a big rank, covered homicide cases. Three things that stand out. When you go to bed at night, what are the three things that you think about?
I had the luxury of having a great career where I tell you, I could not wait to go to work every single day.
Wow, what a blessing. Define your passion. I mean, that's great to hear. Okay, that's one. Two?
The friends that I made over those 25 years that I still have today, not only in Los Angeles, but across this country and really in the world, that I was fortunate enough to travel a great deal in my cases. I got to go to London a couple of times on these cases. So the great friends and experiences I was able to make because of LAPD. And lastly is the man that it made me into. Without a father growing up, no guidance per se of a single working mom, these folks at LAPD and my training officers were really the ones that were formidable in making me really the man that I am today, the dad that I am today, the person I am today. I really owe it to them.
Wow. Don Tabak, that's his name. He'll be back. I promise you, he'll be back, and we'll continue to pull back the curtain, because we didn't even peel the
I went way too fast. And I want to thank you too, Coach, for having me in here. It's an honor to be next to you, and like I said, we paralleled our lives.
It's my honor. It's amazing how we paralleled our lives. Do you ever talk to Chuck Helm? You ever see him?
Not for a long time.
I saw him a couple of years ago. He's a big boy like we are. You know?
Yeah.
As you get older, I don't know. You're well built, though. You're much better built than I am. So you're doing
just from the outside. The inside's already broken down with all these surgeries that I've had.
You're doing something.
Hey, let me give you one quick thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we talked about law enforcement and how people are viewing it and blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind that every day, there are hundreds of thousands of contacts with citizens by every walk of law enforcement life. In all the shootings in the past 2 years, and all the bad publicity has been about 22 cases. That's a pretty good odds. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cases a month versus 22. If there was any other industry that had that success, this country would be really, really good. So it's a very, very small fraction that makes the papers versus these men and women that are out there today doing a phenomenal job.
I agree. Too much common sense for our media. Our media is all about hype and getting eyeballs and selling advertising. It's terrible. I mean, God bless KHTS and the great job that they do in this community. They do so much in this community. And if the media would just have conversations like this all over the country, I think people people would have a different perspective on things, don't you think?
Absolutely.
All right, brother. So one last question. So you never wanted to go into private detective, because I'd hire you as a private. I don't know. I don't have any reason to hire you right now, but
I have a private investigations business.
oh, you do?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can the public hire you?
Absolutely.
Oh, my
but
God.
I'm very specialized in what I do, and I have the luxury of taking cases that I can really help people with. I don't do domestics and follow him or her around.
Oh, you don't?
No, sir. But we have contacts. So it's D. Tabak, can I say?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's D. Tabak and Associates, and I'm based here.
Do you
in
have a
Santa Cruz Valley.
website?
No, I do. Everything is by
Terrible.
word of mouth. So
Well,
no.
they can call the coach. If you need
Absolutely.
a private detective, call the coach. And we'll see you real soon on The Business of Life, KHTS 1220 AM. There's George Strait. Take us out, George. Come on, George.